but that guy said this about this, isn't that wrong? And he was talking about 5G and they burn a 5G tower. And I'm like, yeah, they burn a 5G tower. And he talked about that, but he should have the right to say that. And I get into these weird arguments and sometimes they don't go anywhere.
I
Sometimes
mean,
they
I
do.
remember when the ACLU stood up for the KKK's right
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and this is actually a point, and I get in a lot of trouble. I've said this repeatedly. People get very angry with me when I say this. I always see the statement, racism has no place in our society. I disagree with that. I don't like it. I wish nobody would be racist. I wish we would have no racism. But again, it is not the business of a free society to say that any view is absolutely intolerable. And I say view, I didn't say action. You can have whatever view you want as a matter of private conscience. You cannot take whatever action you want. And so the blurring of this and the failure to understand these differences and the failure to understand that it's absolutely crucial to defend the most odious views, because if things are going wrong, if things are really tipping into fascism, guess which views are going to be considered odious and unable to be held? Those will be the true views. Those will be the right views. When racism was the law of the land, it was free speech. It was the ability to speak against slavery during the abolition movement. It was the ability to speak against the racism of Jim Crow that enabled those freedoms to be enacted. But free speech for one means free speech for all, because the second you start suppressing speech of anybody, it's just the caprice of whoever ends up having the levers of power who gets to decide what hate speech is and what hate speech is not, and gets to decide who can say what. And that's one of the greatest, and in fact, it is probably the greatest tool of oppression that's ever come up in human history, repeatedly come up in human history. And it's a lesson that clearly the people who wrote the Constitution learned very well, because they made it the First Amendment of the United States that we're not going to abridge the freedom of speech. There are, of course, certain exceptions like clear and imminent threat, fighting words, or whatever they happen to be. But that's a different thing from holding a view that somebody finds offensive, or even that could be bad if put into practice. People have to have the right to follow their own private conscience and think and speak for themselves. And on the other side of it, people have the right to listen and to ignore whoever they want to listen to or ignore. This is a fundamental right of a free society, and no society that has significantly abridged it has ever done well for long.